The nine-tailed demon fox. So, the nine-tailed demon fox is, uh, I think it's a really old mythos. I don't know if it comes from ancient China, ancient Chinese, or ancient Japanese. Um, but in the mythos, I believe it is actually a nine-tailed demon fox. Um, Now, where I'm deriving my mythos is a little bit, it's in a more recent rendition of this mythos. It comes from Naruto. In the Naruto series, Naruto, a boy, is forced to contend with a dark presence that has been put inside of him by his mother and by his father. This dark spirit kind of wreaked havoc over Konoha, his home, and the greatest shinobi in the land had to fight to contain and conceal the beast. And he was kind of left with this darkness and this veil of, this shame. And so the people in the village kind of, they admonished him. They never really liked him. So they just kind of, he was kind of, he wasn't liked by anyone because obviously that kind of terror happening in your village would cause people to feel pain, would cause them to be angry at you, and would, breed hatred towards you. So, um, this series is really interesting because the nine-tailed fox, what he represents is our shadow. And you could kind of see the development over time in the series. So initially, Naruto doesn't know about Kurama, which is the name of the apparition or of the spirit, the creature. And eventually he learns about this, the creature, and he comes in face to face with it um, after being possessed by the energy several times. He ends up becoming a liability to the people around him. Um, but then after a while, you kind of see the progression where he didn't know him, and then he starts to know him, then he gets possessed by his energy, and then after a while, he starts to integrate and understand Karama, and this understanding creates a connection, and then he wields that darkness, and he becomes stronger, and he ultimately becomes the hero of the village. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. But in a more darker sense, I think aspects of our shadow have been hidden. Um, there are parts of our shadow that have been hidden, and it's starting to wreak havoc on society, much like the nine-tailed fox. Women, their shadow is largely hidden from the public eye. We don't really understand women's shadow. And so a lot of men have felt compelled to express the shadow side of women because as a society, we've covered it. We've felt that we had to cover the shadow of a woman in order to I guess protect her interest. But it's really interesting. Um, yes. So um, similar thing with just individuals. So back to what I was saying with women, we've masked the shadow side of women just as a collective, and it's caused a lot of issues in a lot of ways. Um, and back to the individual. So as an individual, our shadow sides end up wreaking havoc on people's lives without us knowing it because we don't know our shadow. We don't know our darkness. We never meet our Kurama. We're too afraid. Oftentimes, we're too afraid to contend with with the beast behind the gates, and other people have to suffer as a result of that. Looking back on my life, there were things I did to people, there were things that I said that I didn't mean, but because I was too afraid to delve deeper into the dark aspects of who I was, I never got to meet these parts of myself. And again, other people had to suffer as a result. Um, so the modern idea of shadow work it seems like a mystical thing, seems like something you do with your friends, like hippies, something that hippies do. But I would argue that doing shadow work and contending with your inner nine-tailed demon fox is extremely important work. Reason being is because when you understand the things that you're capable of, when you understand that you as a human, you as a man, you as a woman, you are capable, you are more than capable of committing grand atrocities, and you're more than capable of causing pain and suffering to those around you. Then, into the depths that you understand that you are capable of that, I think it prepares you to be of more use to everyone else and less of a liability. And it also gives you an opportunity to actually have control over your own life, as opposed to just doing something and as opposed to just doing something and then your life causes pain and suffering for others, and you apologize, but you don't even know how it happened. It just happened. The reason why it happened is because you were possessed. Instead of grabbing the thing that you were afraid of and actually contending with it, instead of peering into the darkness and looking into the eyes of your karama, of your nine-tailed fox, you you shy away from it because you're afraid. But the more you run from darkness, the more it overcomes you, which I'm learning has been the case for me. The more I've run from the dark aspects of who I am, the more it has come back, and it has shown me through possession, for lack of a better word, that I have to contend with it. When you do bad things to people, when you do bad things to, even when you think bad things, it's very important to actually be okay with that aspect of yourself. It's important to actually be capable of meeting it, because if you run away from it, then it'll find you again. And that's kind of the point I wanted to throw out. This could be a long series. It could be a 2 or 3 or 4 part. But I think this is this is just me expressing what I believe. This is part of everyone's spiritual journey. But the things inside of us, the darkness inside of us, the dark thoughts that we think, the aspects of the world that we're not comfortable with, that are dark and twisted, all the dark tunnels and chapters of history that we claim, oh, we would never do that, or oh, I would never do that. I would never fall victim to that kind of trap. I would never be the one to wear the gold star. I would never force people to do that. I would never throw people inside of these, gas chambers. I would never be foolish enough to go along with some grand giant scheme. In light of recent events, this topic is it's very important, because when you look around the world and what's happening now, we can kind of see a shadow just overcoming the world, and everyone's eyes are kind of glazed over. Um, Perhaps this is because we haven't delved deep into our own shadows. I believe the people who've delved at least somewhat beyond the shallow end are actually not blind to what's happening in the world, and they can see it very clearly. They can see the mandates. They can see all the things that are happening. They can clearly see the deception. They can clearly see the subterfuge and the money. They can see the business deals, the political, the money laundering, the schemes. They can see these things. And this is something that I think that we're going to have to contend with until we actually look into ourselves and we're willing to face our inner nine-tailed demon fox. And I'm not going to lie, I know that's difficult, but I figured I'd bring it up because it's pretty serious. Because once we actually do face it, the cool and beautiful thing about it is our shadow or our inner nine-tailed fox can become of service to us. In the Naruto series, when he actually understood his shadow side and he went to the inner depths of it, he states in the series that the nine-tailed fox was no longer just some roaming animal who was feared by other people. He was of service to the people within that village. So there was a redemption. There's a redemption to our darkness, to us as people. There's an inner redemption that we have from the dark things that we do when we understand why we're doing them. There's a knowledge, there's a wisdom that encapsulates us. And I think this is why it's important to face your darkness, or to at least be willing to see it for moments, glimpses of time. And then later you see it for longer moments of time. And I'm not saying you stay there, because obviously, there are some who delve deeper than others. But I think this is a very important aspect of the human experience, and we should be courageous enough to delve into this wherever it lies, in the political realm, with nature, within our relationships. There are men delving into this realm in the manosphere and the red pill. They're delving into their shadow and the shadow of women primarily, which is interesting to see. But it exists everywhere, and more specifically, it exists inside of us. There are consequences for not facing your shadow, and I think people run into that. And I'll talk about that in the next one. The nine-tailed demon fox.